something other than your conscious mind is keeping you alive. I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrzych.com or on Instagram at heathergrzych. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. And the final question, what does the wisdom of the body mean to you? There's intelligence and then there's wisdom. And people have started to identify that there are different types of intelligence. People may talk about emotional intelligence now or spiritual intelligence. You may even see these terms popping up in places you would not expect, like in your workplace even. Maybe that's a place where we assume the only intelligence people have is in their brain. But now people are discovering that there are other types of intelligence. But how's wisdom different than intelligence? This is a question I often ponder. Sometimes I think I know. Sometimes I think it's when my mind and my body are fully on the same page on something. Like there's this feeling that I get in connection with a thought. Wisdom also seems to bring up the idea of being learned through experience rather than a thought experiment or memorization. Maybe you could define wisdom more by recognizing what doesn't seem like wisdom, though sometimes we can realize that only in hindsight. But there's a wisdom of the body, and though it doesn't need you to pay attention to it in order for it to function, you're going to get along much better if you do pay attention to it. Some people call it intuition, though even someone's intuition can actually be unwise. I don't know if you've noticed that. Again, this is typically realized in hindsight. After I decided the name of this podcast, I found a book written in the 1930s. It was called Wisdom of the Body. The author was a medical doctor who was running scientific experiments on animals to see what happens when you expose them to certain extreme external circumstances, drastic changes in temperature, changes in salt intake, things like that. I personally couldn't do studies on animals because I'm too much of a softie, but I know a lot of people who do. I know how much they've helped people learn about the human body. But if you can get past that part, the animal cruelty part, and learn from what this particular doctor was trying to highlight, he was essentially presenting all the ways in which the body reacts to certain circumstances and how it adapts. So you could say in some way that it's talking about the innate intelligence of a body that allows it to shift in order to maintain its vital functions in a difficult circumstance. And perhaps that calls up the word homeostasis for you. A body comes back to balance after something difficult has happened to it. And this will happen unless, of course, something has gone on for a really long time, or it has happened to such a degree of change that it produces irreversible physical damage. So you get a little cut on your finger. That's very different than losing a leg in an explosion or losing a body part to diabetes complications. And turns out that your body will try to heal itself to the degree that its own potential for regeneration has not been eliminated. And my body has it, and so does your body. And if you don't believe in any kind of God, perhaps because you're an atheist or an agnostic, then this may be the closest proxy you have for God. Something other than your conscious mind is keeping you alive, and that's pretty mystical if you ask me. The big question that comes up for a lot of people when they realize that the wisdom of the body even exists is, why didn't anybody ever teach me about this? Even something as simple as what a parent does when a child gets a small boo-boo will create a belief about what we must do when we are hurt. And that creates patterns later in life. So like upon a child falling and hearing, "You're okay," he becomes the child who develops strong coping mechanisms, but was never allowed to feel feelings and starts getting physical manifestations of the emotions. And the child whose parents want to ice everything or neosporin everything or over-the-counter medicine everything because they can't deal with the pain of seeing their own child hurt. Well, we can guess what happens to that kid. And I can tell you from being a parent now that I am absolutely sure I will screw my kid up in some way because of some issue I have in myself. I'm trying to hunt my own issues down and I'm trying to learn from them, but I'm definitely learning on the fly, and I'm sure I've screwed some things up. And these things that we screw up that are mental and emotional in nature, well, they affect our body. There are people doing psychedelics of all kinds, and doing all these shamanic activities to shed layers that keep them disconnected from themselves and their humanity. Lots of people trying to reprogram themselves right now so that they may really meet themselves, as singer Nessie Gomez talked about in episode 26 of Wisdom of the Body. And in episode 44, I interviewed KP Khalsa, and he brought up the importance of grandma healers and how that's missing in our culture. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we have a lot of elders in our culture who are not wise. And well, we learn from them. And even people who have really well-developed intellects and who've created incredible inventions or successful companies, there seems to be some kind of greater wisdom that got lost in a couple of the generations, at least in the United States where I live. It makes sense that only the wisest and luckiest individuals of a tribe would live the longest. But now we actually have biomedical technologies that promise sometimes even the stupidest and most unlucky among us a long, drugged-up life. And there are those of us trying to do better than the previous generations. We're learning better ways to eat, to live, etc. Though even that can be challenging because we seem to want some kind of quick solution to even that. When I interviewed Kate O'Donnell in episode 7, we talked about the importance of yoga and Ayurveda today for restoring the wisdom of the body, and how, eating and really looking at how we're eating is a big factor in that. In order to listen to the wisdom of the body, well, you need to learn about your body. You got to pay attention to it. You also have to allow your body to do what it was meant to do. You have to learn from it. And that can be a hard pill to swallow for anybody who is used to willing or outsmarting their way into things. The body requires listening. In episode 55, physicist Sky Nelson-Issacs talked about letting go of trying to be perfect and not punishing your body. What does the wisdom of the body mean to you, Sky?
Well, I learned in that time of where I was really punishing my body as a way of trying to gain more control and discipline over myself and feel better. My mind was trying to feel better in my self-esteem by accomplishing something externally. And I had this dream about beating my head against a wall. I learned that my body, and in fact me in general, is not the problem. And I can let go of trying to be perfect, let go of trying to have perfect health or perfect exercise or perfect well-being, and see that well-being is just a part of physical well-being, is a support system for mental well-being for me. And my mental well-being, my desire to feel good about myself is, or whatever it might look like for someone else, the mental well-being is driving the choices we make. And it's in service to and given service by our physical well-being. And so these two aspects of our lives are both mutually important. And when we can get them both serving each other, then we can actually look at how can I contribute to the world in a way that's productive and can offer solutions. But until we are taking care of ourselves mentally and emotionally and physically, then I think we tend to project solutions onto other people that really are about us. And I think this is maybe underlying the history of colonialization. When we come at the world from a perspective that we're unhappy or dissatisfied with ourselves and our lot in life, we actually might get even more certain that our way of viewing things is correct and think that other people need to look at things our way. And then we try to impose our point of view on another person to solve their problems. But really what we're doing is dissatisfied with our problems and trying, so we should turn it around, look inside. What is it that I want to learn from and grow in my life? Who do I want to become? And that is the focus that we take into the world.
I happen to have a lot of friends and colleagues who are Ayurvedic doctors and practitioners because of my training and the communities that I'm a part of. So I've interviewed a lot of the leaders in the Ayurvedic field in the US. Some I've mentioned already, and I've had really incredible conversations with Dr. John Douillard, Susan Weiss-Bolin, Amadea Morningstar, and my Ayurveda school thesis advisor, Dr. Suhas Kshirsagar, and his son Manas, who I work really closely with at National Ayurvedic Medical Association. People who are into Ayurveda, they're really into finding true nature or shedding of the layers that prevent us from connecting with true nature. And on the way there, we need to learn how to eat better, how to live more in line with the natural rhythms, and how to honor the biological phase of life that we are in. Also, while training for optimal performance within that phase of life that we're in. And here's what Sarah Kuchera had to say about the wisdom of the body in episode 61 on consistent routines.
Ooh, the wisdom of the body to me is like our inner guide. It's like an inner teacher that we can choose to listen, we can choose to override, and it will either reward us or it will perhaps work against us. Not that it's punishing us, but the wisdom of the body to me is really like an inner teacher.
Musician Jack Stafford talked about listening to the body in episode 66 and the toll that years of traveling and bad routines took on his body. Jack, what does the wisdom of the body mean to you?
Oh, good one. Good one. Wisdom of the body. Depends in what way you could mean that, because I have some affirmations when I'm doing my pranayama. That's what springs into my mind, is that I am the divine spirit which is now mastering my mind and my body. So in one sense, I'm trying to master my body and do affirmations to get my body to do what I want it to do, and at the same time, I'm trying to listen to it and be kind to it and send loving messages and trying to listen to it. So it's a careful balance.
In the last year, my awareness of environmental issues really increased exponentially. Not that I didn't know things were going on, but they personally became very, very, very heavy for me. This started to weigh more deeply on me because I started to worry about what the state of the world will be for my kid in a few decades. It's not even about my own self-preservation. I'm actually afraid for him. I realize that for me, not only do I need to focus on what's wise for me and the taking care of my body, but also the people around me. And I have to think about this from both the short and the long-term perspective. Like, what's important to me now and for the kids 50 years from now. I really want to enable the wisdom of my own body and my child's, despite how crazy and polluted the environment has gotten. And I interviewed my Ayurveda colleague, Madison Madden, who's also super passionate about environmental issues, in episode 69. We spoke about starting a new relationship with food. It's not always easy to make changes yourself. Sometimes we really need a teacher. Now, on the other hand, sometimes we need to trust ourselves more, right? So you can benefit by having a teacher, but then sometimes you kind of also need to focus on your own inner teacher. Here's what Madison had to say about the wisdom of the body.
The wisdom of the body to me means being radically authentic to yourself. And in that lies tremendous wisdom.
When something has gotten out of balance in our body, we sometimes struggle to learn to trust our bodies again. Even our immune system, when that starts to get compromised, it can take a lot to reconnect with that innate intelligence of the body. I interviewed immunologist Dr. Azza Gadir about immunity, allergies, and vaccines in episode 36. She talked about how she's consistently blown away by all the potential things that can go wrong in our bodies and how good the immune system is at preventing those things from going wrong. I know a lot of people question whether it's wise to give people vaccines. And perhaps if you live in a bubble and you don't come in contact with anything, then it wouldn't be very wise. It would be very stupid because you'd be putting something in your body for no reason. But Azza and I talked about how vaccines are basically about presenting something to the immune system in a way that's like training the body to deal with something so that it can deal with it if it ever comes in contact with it later, almost like a simulation. And obviously that works fine as long as your body can handle that training. And you have to be the person who decides if it's worth it for you or for your own individual life and also for your connection to the greater good of the community that you live in. What does the wisdom of the body mean to you, Azza?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think for me personally, I'm just going to tell you the first thing that comes to mind. It's that, obviously I've spent a lot of time thinking about the immune system and I'm just consistently blown away. I think I mentioned earlier by all of the potential things that can go wrong and just how incredible it is at preventing those things from going wrong. So I would say that the wisdom of the human body is I think to trust kind of the complexity of your immune system. But I think that at the same time, to keep in mind that there are ways that you can work with it, right? That you can collaborate with it. And so even things like a vaccine, you're essentially presenting something to the immune system to allow it to do its thing that it does anyway, millions of times a day. So for me, I would say that the wisdom of the human body is trusting in your body and in your immune system and learning as much as you can about it and how complex it is, but at the same time, collaborating with it as much as you can.
And I think many of us start to think about the wisdom of our bodies when something goes wrong. I wish we were all walking around in wonder and appreciation for all the things our body does without us lifting a finger. But the truth is that it can be kind of easy to forget about the body in our very stimulating and tantalizing and distracting world. So it calls our attention more when something is painful or uncomfortable or really pleasurable. But not just when something goes wrong, but also when something doesn't go our way, like if you're trying to conceive a child. I interviewed Dr. Cindy Duke in episode 64. We spoke a lot about the state of fertility today. We talked about reproduction, which is largely dependent on the wisdom of the body. It's largely dependent on this animal experience of our body, despite how much our mind wants to control it or bend reality to it. Or, we really do need to learn how to listen to that body. And we also talked about how we need to listen to our cravings and understand where they come from. Dr. Cindy, what does the wisdom of the body mean to you?
I love that. What does the wisdom of the body means to me? One of the things I like to tell people is our body knows what it wants long before we acknowledge it. And so the wisdom of the body is taking time to be in tune with your body, and of course, because I'm a hormone specialist, I spend time talking to patients about how they interpret things like cravings, things like suddenly you're craving inert things like metals, etc. And in fact, that's really your brain telling you, hey, we're low on iron or we're low on magnesium. It's interesting how the body is wise enough to recognize what it's missing and create a signal that translates into a knowing what it needs and a messaging to you that you then seek out the thing without knowing exactly what it is if you're not in tune. And that to me is really incredibly dynamic. It's nothing that can be explained with just saying it's this test or that test. It suggests a series of deep conversations and communications that are happening at this sort of, I guess, the soul level, the realm that we haven't fully tapped into properly yet as humans. So that's what I think about the wisdom of the body. It's first acknowledging that your body usually knows what it wants, and it's usually giving you cues as to how you can help yourself. And we have to learn how to reprogram the recognition, because sadly, a lot of active marketing campaigns and a lot of other things have taught us to ignore those cues over the years, because people needed to sell us certain foods, or they needed to sell us certain cosmetics, or they needed to sell us certain electronics. And so the first thing they needed to do was deprogram your ability to listen to the cues. But the body is really wise. It always usually knows what it needs. If your body's telling you don't work so hard right now, trust and believe it knows why. If it's telling you this isn't the time to do that strenuous exercise, it's because it knows why. It's probably determined that even the heart needs a little bit more boosting before you do that thing. But many of us aren't in touch with the cues anymore. So that's what it means for me, Heather.
Indigenous cultures, with their rituals still tied to the roots and times when we weren't all sitting on Netflix at 10 p.m. and setting alarm clocks to kick us out of bed. Well, people who are still tied to the roots and times can remind us of the times in which life was less complex and when humans were more connected to the earth. I found this from studying Ayurvedic medicine, which is an ancient form of medicine that's indigenous to India. But other indigenous medicines have this too. In fact, I sat with two of my revered teachers from India last year as we attended a Native American fire ceremony, and they commented afterwards how similar the ceremony was to ones from the Vedic traditions from India. It makes me wonder, as time has gone on for humanity, have we just become less connected with our bodies and less connected with nature? In episode 51, I interview Kevin Martin, who's a member of the Sioux and Assiniboine tribes. He's a healer and an artist, and he reflected on how people want to more deeply connect with their existence on Earth these days. How do you interpret the phrase, the wisdom of the body, Kevin?
It has a significant meaning because depending on the type of medicine that you utilize, depending on your type of practice, there are levels and depths that go along with understanding. For example, medicine men can see inside your body. Some of them have been inside your body looking. And what we do know is that there's order. We do know that there are sacred colors, sacred patterns, the rhythm of your heartbeat, and the passageways of synaptic connection. A lot of those things have been explored by certain medicine men. And, it depends on the level. Like I said, if you're looking at somebody who deals with plant medicines, they'll understand and be experts in those fields. There are those that work with feathers. There are those that work with water. There are those that work with earth. It depends on the practice. But for the most part, if you go along, and we certainly in the Native communities do not reject any knowledge that will further your ascension to wellness. It doesn't matter the culture, because we understand that the Creator put us on this earth, separate and individual, gave us all that was necessary to proceed with life in our prayers and our languages and the colors of our skin. And the diversity of life was heralded by a sacred being and put us on this planet together. And to understand how to proceed in life is to answer that original question of why. Why were we all here together on this planet? And so wisdom of the body is, to me, to understand yourself as a representative of all that you see, all of the elements, all the earth elements, and those in fire, and those in wind, and those in water, and to understand yourself and ground yourself, makochiwaka, what we say. So if you understand that you are a part of this world, and a part of this life, and seek to take care of the entirety of this earth, because for us, this earth is our body. All the air we breathe, it is us. The wind that blows, it is our words, it's our breath. we represent those things. So for me, that's a pretty deep question. I'm not entirely sure if I satisfied you with my answer, but to me, it depends on the depth that you want to go into it. If you want to go into exercising, there are plenty of folks out there that'll help you to understand that. If you want to get into more really in-depth quantum mechanics or quantum manifestation, for example, yeah, you're going to spend a lifetime.
Dr. Rowshanak Hashemiyoon, a behavioral neuroscientist, talked in Wisdom of the Body, episode 59, about rewiring beliefs, about how all the benchmarks for mental health are actually changing right now, and why it's so detrimental to have science and spirit and magic disconnected from each other, why it's been such an issue for humanity, and how self-care can actually restore us. What does the wisdom of the body mean to you?
The wisdom of the body means to me somewhat what I just described, which is that we were gifted these extraordinary vessels, tools, vehicles that allow us to express fully our humanity within the cradling of its divinity, that it will allow us to know how to navigate both and interface them if we knew how to listen to it and better understood it.
And Tisha Love, an Ayurvedic practitioner, talks about what happens when you physically and spiritually nurture yourself in episode 53.
The wisdom of the body to me means that innate intelligence, and it can tell me what I need if I pay attention to it, if I'm listening to it, if I'm feeling into it, and I respond to what it needs. So yes, no doubt the body has wisdom. I think it's a part of the innate intelligence that's out there, and the practices of body awareness and attention allows us to hear it and apply it for our benefit.
The wisdom of the body might seem like it changes because our preferences and our values change, and our bodies change, and our environments change. But behind that, there's something unchangeable. And here's the great irony. Everything is always changing. And that is actually what's unchangeable. Weird, isn't it? Maybe one of the things we notice most when we're doing healing work is how much people are willing to go on dealing with pain, with discomfort, and even hiding what they're feeling. I know we do it for different reasons, but as they say, the body keeps the score. It knows. It really always knows. And for perhaps my most favorite of all the responses I've received to the question so far, what does the wisdom of the body mean to you? Comes in episode 35 from transformational teacher Kute Blackson.
What is the wisdom of the body? To me, there is an intelligence in the body. The body has a wisdom. If you cut your finger, it knows how to heal. It knows what to do. And so there's an innate intelligence that's moving in the body, that the more we can live that and trust that and allow that to move and flow, I think the freer we will be, beyond the mind. And so I trust the wisdom of the body. To me, the wisdom of the body is the wisdom of life, is the wisdom of the divine, the wisdom of the soul, is the wisdom of, because the wisdom of the body is just not the wisdom of the body. The wisdom of the body is the wisdom of this, because what's living the body, that's the wisdom. What's living the body is the innate intelligence, is the infinite. That's what's living the body. And so I think as a humanity, we've kind of lost touch with that. We don't trust our body. We don't trust our immune system. We don't trust our own ability to heal because we've forgotten who we are, that we are a part of nature, and that we are the body, but we're not the body. And we are the body as the body, but we're also more than the body. And yet we are the body, And so I think let's remember that we're part of nature, and what's living the body is life, it's consciousness, it's infinite. And I think as we trust that and relax into that, surrender to that, we bring ourselves back into a natural flow rather than overriding the body from the outside in and making it to be something that it's not, and filling ourselves with all sorts of drugs that disconnect us from the cycle, the monthly cycle, the daily cycle. The same thing as living the body. It's the same intelligence that is functioning the sun and the stars and the moon. The same intelligence that is functioning the oceans and the river. The same intelligence that's functioning all the bacteria and the amoebas and all multidimensional realms of existence. The same intelligence that is functioning the body. That wisdom is the wisdom of all existence. And so let's surrender to that. Let's trust that. And I think when we do, it knows exactly how to fulfill itself through us, in us, as us, in profound ways. That's when we will see miracles in our lives. And our life will be proof of that wisdom.
I love asking people what the wisdom of the body means to them. I think you can hear the deep feeling in people's voices when they answer this question. And actually, I'd love to know what it means to you. So reach out to me on Instagram at Heather Grzych or contact me at heathergrzych.com to let me know, what does the wisdom of the body mean to you? If you are embarking on a fertility journey and are ready to have your mind blown about what your body is really capable of and how it's impacted by the environment, then check out my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. You can actually download the introduction to the book for free on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Read the intro for free and then buy the rest of this fertility enlightening book pretty much anywhere books are sold. I want to thank you for listening to this show. It brings me great pleasure to provide this content to you. I also want to let you know that I'll be making some very amazing announcements soon. And if you're not already on my email list, then I encourage you to go over to my website and subscribe to my email list so that I can keep you informed about these announcements that are going to be coming up very soon. So my website is heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And I look forward to getting these important announcements to you very soon and connecting. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.